Hey guys, um, happy flying, and I hope you guys are enjoying the hobby and progressing. But I'm making this video specifically for you guys who wanna jump into the hobby and you're not really too sure where to start and exactly what kind of size helicopter suits you best. I guess it to me it always came down to starting off. You know, it came down to my budget. The bigger you go, the more expensive they are. So that's like the first thing to consider is the price. Second thing to consider is how fast you're able to learn, and that's gonna determine how many times you're gonna bring that helicopter down, and how many crashes you're gonna experience, and on top of that, how much money you're really gonna spend trying to get that helicopter back up. Um, as far as that goes, it's kind of self-explanatory. The bigger the helicopter, the more, the parts are gonna be. Um, the more damage to the helicopter. You got more weight. You got more. You know, you got heavier parts, heavier moving parts, and you just have much more money in the air. For example, like to start off with this one right here in front of me, this is actually the Blade Infusion 180. Oh, sorry, that's the Fusion 180. They have two versions of it. Not quite the same thing, just the same size. And the sizing on the helicopters nowadays, um, they refer to the size. They go based off the blade length. That's not always exactly true. Also, I mean, like the Fusion 360 is actually running it's actually spinning a 350 mil blade. And anyways, here's the actual Fusion Infusion 180, the one I was confusing it for. And micros, are also not created equal. Some are gonna save you even more money just because of the parts count. For example, this the like you have newer micro helis um, that have less parts, and that's because of the direct drive motor, main motor, and the direct drive tail motor, and that eliminates gears and all those things that in between. It does come with the compromise, just performance, but not recently. All this brushless direct drive, helis, they've been performing really well. And but anyways, that's just it shouldn't be something you should consider just yet anyway, since you're just learning. So I like to stick to something more realistic to the real thing if I'm gonna fly a micro, and that's why let me get this out of the way. I like to stick with the Blade Fusion 180 because it has a belted tail, and as far as all your bigger helicopters go, you're gonna have that. You know the tail is gonna be driven by the main motor, and because of that, the main benefit is that you can control your pitch at the tail blades rather than having to spool up and spool down a tail motor. It's more efficient, it's more responsive, it's more locked in. You get more of it's a faster, tail overall. It reacts more like the actual, bigger helis. And I think that's something, that's always going to be good to kind of grandfather yourself into and just kind of get used to that. And I found that this one right here, specifically, I've crashed it multiple times, and you know, most of the time, this one right here in front of me is actually the 180 Smart, and I have not, I hardly break many parts. Granted that it has a tail driven, a belt driven tail, and you have more parts in the rear. Um, as far as this one goes, not many parts break. You do bend your main shaft. You bent the feathering shaft. I have never ever broken the head block. Blade grips, I do snap those. The DFC, this I installed the older DFC head just because it's more rigid, and on this one these links they never break, and the new one they tend to bend in a crash. I did upgrade that swash plate to a micro heli. The aluminum one looks better, and it has less slop and it's much more accurate. What I love about this one is that the servos in a hard crash, I've had a hard time, you know, damaging a servo. I mean, I'd have to crash it so hard to the point where the servo, comes into contact with whatever I'm crashing into and it just kind of breaks it. But other than that, I've never stripped one or burnt one. I mean, they're solid. Main gear goes on this one. That's always a must. So if you're picking up a Fusion 180, I pick up spare main gears, spare main shafts and feathering shafts and blade grips. These blades have seen hell and they've hit, you know, I don't know, everything, and they're still here. They're balanced. There's no vibrations, so the blades can withstand the abuse. I mean, it's always good to have spares. Um, Motor. My only complaint with this one is I've had to replace that motor pinion multiple times just because it's brass. In a crash, you're gonna see, and even just flying it a lot, you're gonna see wear to the brass motor pinion. It gets loud, and I've also found that all those vibrations from the teeth will cause the FBL to react kind of weird. It'll just the helicopter won't fly as well as it did when it had a perfect brand new pinion. So that's the only thing I don't like about this. The micros, when they do have like a brass pinion, it wears, and some helicopters cause issues, and this is one of them for me. Yeah, I mean, I think they should have gone with the steel pinion. Maybe that's something they can consider. It does run 4S, which is pretty powerful, and I kind of want to show you guys, if you guys haven't already seen it on YouTube. You can actually get more head speed out of this, and that goes for all blade helis with their smart ESCs. Yeah, this is a great option. Other than that, you're gonna break landing gear, and everything else kind of always survives. The boom, you might have a boom strike. I mean, I've never completely destroyed a boom, even in the hardest crash. It might bend a little bit, but they come in packs of two. Tail case, I broke one of them, and you do bend that your your tail shaft, that'll become bent. The hub, it takes a lot to bend that. As long as you don't have your tail blades too tight, a lot of the force from the blade striking the ground will reduce the impact to the hub, and that'll save it. But yeah, that's pretty much all that goes on this one when you do crash, and this is a really nice little bird, and I recommend this one over all the other micros I do have. And I do have the OMP M1, and I had the M2, and I like them, but I just had to get rid of them just because, well, one of them, just because I didn't want to the more brands you have and the more you know different helis you deal with, you're gonna have a different stockpile of parts, and I kind of just prefer to stick with one provider. That way I can just move on and get them back up in the air as soon as possible. And again, like I said, it all comes down to parts availability. Every time, I mean, located in California, and ordering from Horizon Hobby, most of the time they have everything in stock, and they ship out within a day, and parts arrive within the second day. Um, so that's another reason why I go with them. I'm always in the air with very little downtime. The Fusion 360, it's you know it's honestly almost as much as it's half price. It's a double the price, sorry, of the Fusion 180. Fusion 180 is 270, I believe, $270, and the Fusion 360 is 500. So it's a fair, you know, it's a fair price for a bind and fly. You're getting a lot. You really are. Just make sure you always go through your helicopters, and it's part of the hobby. Learn how to build them and set them up, because it's not a joke. If you really want to progress to the bigger ones, like the one back there, the Tron 7.0, I mean that's not something you want to reckon with. That thing comes at you, and or whatever it is, and it can lead to your death or someone else's death or someone's property damage, and you're gonna have to deal with it. It's just keep safety in mind at all times. So back to the 180. I mean, parts count for what I said. Most of the time, to get it back up in the air, you're spending like $10 every parts bag. So if you're buying blade grips, it's $10 for those. You're buying landing gear, it's like I believe like $8, $10. Booms, $10. You're looking at about $60 to get it back up in the air, around 50. Just depends how hard you crash. The good thing about the micros is you get a lot of the when you do order parts, they always come in set of two, which is a bonus. Considering there are micros, it's more for beginners, and it's a good beginner choice because of that. Um, Plus, crashing this is going to reduce a lot of the you know damages you normally see in a bigger helicopter. So that's the Fusion 180, and it's got these. All the blades have the stability mode, meaning that you can fly this and at a full stick input forward or roll. It won't allow the helicopter to roll. It'll stay stable. It'll return to center, just like flying a drone. Um, the 360, you're looking at parts. Parts increase is probably double. Your booms, instead of being $10, you're looking at more like 15, 16, $20. You also get a set of two. Landing gear, you're looking at 25, like $30, and your blade grips, everything's around 30, head block 30. You're looking more, upwards $100 or more to repair this and get it back up in the air. Servos, they're like about $30, upwards to 40. That's the only negative thing I don't like about the con I don't like about the Fusion 360. These servos do tend to strip fairly easy. Even when you come to a land, and let's say for some, like for example, this one time I flew my helicopter a little over um, voltage cutoff, and it's obviously, head speed is reduced, and it's slowly dying on you. And on the way down, I landed, and it ended up tipping over. The head speed was pretty low, and with just that blade strike on the ground, it was dirt, loose dirt. It was able to kind of fairly strip the one of the servos. It felt very crummy inside, and I just replaced the gears because I don't risk it. But yeah, that's the only thing with this one. Servos are pretty. It's what becomes most cost. It's like the most costly part to replace, just because it strips so easy. You really don't want to be crashing that one too much, because you will be spending upwards $200, and at that point you're probably considering buying another one. It's probably the cheapest way to go. Um, but yeah, I mean it's a night and day difference. Flying a Fusion 360 compared to a 180 size little helicopter. It's just more predictable. It's more nimble. You feel like you're more in control. Don't get me wrong, the Fusion 180 feels very it feels bigger than what it is, but once you compare it to an actual big helicopter, you get to see the differences, almost immediately. And as far as the 700 Tron or any 700 helicopter, once you get the courage to finally step it up and move on from the smaller helicopters. Pretty much anything that's smaller than a 550 is gonna feel like a micro, and it's just that much of a big of a difference. It feels very predictable. Everything in relations to your sticks. And what I mean by that is when you move your sticks forward or back, or you're pitching forward and rolling, it feels as if the helicopter moves in relations to the stick. Like exact. Like everything seems more precise. With smaller helicopters, I feel like the helicopter's moving faster than I'm moving the sticks. It's not moving with the sticks. It just and you can also tune that out with your roll rates. But regardless of any tuning that you do, it just feels more natural when you're actually flying a bigger helicopter. And what I mean by that is that it just kind of feels like the remote and the helicopter, you know, kind of hardwired. Like it's not even there's no delay. It's just like if you're in command, you know, that's kind of the best way I can explain it. Um, yeah, but once you move up to a 700 size, parts aren't too bad. I mean, considering for what it is. For example, if you strip a main gear, it's something that you might not necessarily strip, depending on how you crash. But if you do, you're looking upwards at $40, $50. That's already the amount to fix an entire Fusion 180. That's about what it would take to kind of repair most of it. If you destroy your blades, you're looking at $100 already just with blades, and that's kind of a given. That's gonna kind of get damage, and you most likely won't be able to salvage those. Tail blades, another 50, $30. The booms are 25. You're looking at around 400 to $300 to get it back up, and that's just what it is. I mean, the only thing I can say is just don't crash. But that's just not something that's realistic. It's gonna happen. It happens to the best, the best of pilots. It's happened to me a couple hundred times. Um, Now I can say I can go out there and I feel confident that I'll come back with my helicopters. And the only time I ever do crash is when I'm flying a smaller helicopter. That's because one, it gets away from me, like I said, and two, I feel more confident to try things on it just because I know that it's gonna be cheap to repair. Now, it doesn't teach me much though, because when I'm trying to learn new maneuvers or just try things, I sometimes it just goes back and forth. So it's good to have a micro and it's good to have you know a 360 size heli. And the reason I say that is because with the micro, I like to practice. Sometimes I like to practice like my orientations or loops or sometimes TikToks, but the TikToks get a little, they're more difficult than it compared to when I try them on my 360, and it just gets away from me really quick. So when I ever want to do something, I or learn something new, I try to learn it on a 360 size helicopter, 450, whatever you want to call it. And I'll try things on that, and then I'll come down and I'll go pick up my when I'm on the go, I'll pick up my Fusion 180 and I'll just fly that and just practice a maneuver. Once I got it down on my sticks and I got a feel for it, I clean it up with my 180, and then when I go back up to my bigger birds, I it just feels so much easier. It just feels like you know I progressed super quick. And just because of the with the micro helis, the smaller ones, you got to work a little more. But I mean, it's you get used to it. But that's the thing, that when you move up to the bigger ones, everything's just so predictable. You just see it coming. It feels like you can react sooner, and it feels like you have a lot of time to react compared to a micro. And when you just, I guess what I'm trying to say is that for me, it was so much better, starting off with the micro and moving up to a bigger one, because I was able to see the transition and the difference in flight characteristics, because it just feels like you're flying in slow motion with the bigger ones. It's just that much presence in the air that you feel like you have so much time to react. Um, you know, Depending on the head speed that you're running also as well, because a 700 can get away from you pretty damn quick. If you're running upwards 2,200 RPM to 23, 24, that thing's gonna, it's like a rocket. It's gone. But that's why we progress slowly. And with the Fusion 360, since it's like it's in between the way the flight characteristic is. It's similar to the like 550. It's different, but it's more predictable than like a micro would be. When you fly a 700 bird and compare it to like a 450 size 360, it's more, you know, it kind of feels. I mean, it just makes all of them feel like, it takes away all the intimidation. Like when I fly my 700 and then go to my 360, all the intimidation that I used to have for the 360 is like completely gone. I feel so confident flying that thing. So I'll try new things, and I'll execute my new maneuvers, better than I would on a 180. And then when I try it on the 360 and go to like a smaller one, I'll try it on that, and then I'll, dial it down on that one. And then when I try it on the 700, it just feels so easy. Like it's like, I don't know, you'd have to try it. But as far as that goes, again, I honestly do recommend people getting something starting off. Would be, and it all depends on your budget. If money's tight, or is something that you really aren't too sure you're gonna progress. Start with something small like this. If you feel like it's something you're gonna do and something you love, if you have a passion for helicopters and aviation, I'd say just go for the whole 360. Go for something that size. It doesn't have to be a blade; it could be whatever you like. And I can say these are reliable models. Um, but yeah, go with something that size, and just be prepared to kind of crash. I mean, the good thing that nowadays you guys have the stability mode. You'll learn your orientation, and you'll have your see, what I used to do is go to stability mode and instead of a linear throttle curve all through mode 1, normal mode 1 and mode 2. I actually take that back, and idle up 2, I'd keep that at my highest head speed. But idle up 1, I'd keep that to the same throttle curve as the normal mode, so I can switch back and forth from stability to idle up, which was a 3D mode. So I'd kind of hover and get out of a stability hover to a you're in control hover, and you kind of feel the difference in stability because now the helicopter gets away from you, but it takes the intimidation out of it pretty quick. And then you start finding yourself, moving forward, and you just practice your orientation, and you start doing loops, and you start, getting more confident to try things. And especially the size, and that helps a lot too. It just feels like it won't tip over as fast as a smaller helicopter would. So let me kind of show some of the settings, and this is gonna apply to the rest of the blade helicopters. Anything that has a 6250 or any of their smart helicopters will have these features. Just give me a sec. Here's my old reliable. This is my DX8. I like to stick to this just because I've never had any issues with this. Sometimes I fly with my IX12, but that software sometimes just freezes, and I just can't be dealing with things like this when I'm trying to fly. So hold. Now, if you guys want more head speed out of your 360, for those of you guys who want to kind of, wake this thing up, go to throttle, and go to your offset, disable hold, and normal mode, set it to 0. I always set normal to 0 because when I'm going to try to recalibrate my ESC at startup, I always have a curve for 0 to 100, and that's going to allow me to recalibrate the ESC to its full output. If you have an offset, and let's say you have a negative offset of 20, that's 25% less output the ESC is going to give to your motor. And because of that, if you relearn the calibration, recalibrate the ESC with an offset set to a negative value or even a positive value, it's gonna adjust from that point on. So if you give it throttle to what you presume is 100%, you're actually not 100%. You're at 75% because you subtracted the 25. So you're only gonna output at 100%. It's gonna limit it to 75% of its total output. So anytime you're gonna recalibrate your ESC, if you find that it's not, fast enough, you feel like your throttle curves are, kind of weird and it's kind of too slow, even at 100%, set your offset to 0 first, and then recalibrate your ESC. Set a throttle curve to 0 from 0, 25, 75, 100. Set your throttle. Start your transmitter. Set throttle to 100%. Connect your blade helicopter, whatever. Connect your ESC, and you're gonna wait for 2 beeps, and after the 2 beeps, bring the throttle back down to 0, and that'll recalibrate your ESC the proper way. You'll get the max head speed, and as far as that goes, now the reason for the offset is just because the helicopter is already tuned for all the RPMs that come from factory, and on top of that, since it's a beginner helicopter, they don't want these beginners, outputting to 100% and, messing with the settings. And I would assume that that's going to save someone a trip to the hospital or whatever, just because it's not going to allow the helicopter to go to its full potential. But once you start adding more head speed, you're going to have to start tuning. You're going to have to start tuning your PIDs because you're going to have more mechanical advantage. You're going to need less of the, you're going to want the gyro to work less and not overshoot. And if it's overshooting, it's going to, vibrate or wobble in the air. It might start doing this at 100% output, even at a higher RPM. So really, this helicopter, if you really want to set it up with, 0 offset, the way it's really set, you're going to have to just reduce your throttle curve instead of doing it through the forward programming. So you would be at, instead of what it used to be 100% for what they can recommend, you set that to 80. Set the, that would be for idle up 2. Idle up 1 would be, that they have that offset at 15, negative 15. So just subtract it from 100. And that'll be your throttle curve from factory. But anyways, I keep this the way it was. I actually added some more throttle to my offset. So this used to be negative 15, and flight mode 2 used to be negative 20. So it was outputting 80% of its, out of its total power. So that's that for the offsets, and it makes a world of the difference. This helicopter can, get away from you really quick at its full maximum output. The same goes with the Blade 180 Fusion. You can do the same thing, and the head speed gets crazy, crazy high. So that's the main thing right here. If you want more head speed, just go to your offsets and recalibrate. You don't want to recalibrate with an offset set because it's not going to give you the full output of the ESC in relations to your throttle curve. So if you're setting it to 50 and your offset was 20, your output's going to be 20% of the full 100. So that's why you want to recalibrate at 0. So Yeah, and then I want to touch on some issues that I've had with mine, and I hope this will be of help for all of you who have, bought one. I'm not sure if you guys have had an issue with the first one being the swash plate. I guess you guys can go warranty your parts. I tend to repair my own things. Plus, it helps as experience, and it gets you, you know, prepared for future crashes, and it's better for you to fix your own helicopters and just kind of understand the way it works, because that's also going to help you fly it. Your swash plate, you might have some where the top hat bolts on the upper swash, these bolts are not the issue. The screws, actually, the CNC taper that they machine into the top hat, it's a little too oversized for the actual bolts that come on the. They're silver. They come on the in when it out of the box, brand new. All I did was order some bolts for the Fusion 270. It had a larger head. They still kind of fit flush, and they're black. I think it looks better, and that eliminated that vibration. For those of you guys who are concerned about that, it's not normal. Fix that, or replace the swash, or warranty it. Blade will have no problem warranting a part like that. Just send them the video. I was supposed to send this helicopter in. I didn't do it because I didn't want to wait. This entire helicopter was on back order, and I just didn't want to wait. I wanted to just fly it, and I spent $80 over I actually spent on the whole helicopter, because it did end up coming down on me just because of that. Another thing is, if you have your on this exact model, if you have your belt tension too low, I mean too not too tight, well, too loose, your belt pulley, you will lose your tail. I guarantee it. It's happened to me twice. I'm always able to save the heli. Granted that it's spinning so fast in the air by just flipping back down to stability mode, and the auto the Pyrocomp just takes care of that. It just spins in a flat plane. So the belt would jump over to the other side, and that'll cause it to lose your tail. One more issue was there was one more, and that was gonna be the actually, I think that's it. Other than that, if you have a new 360 bind and fly, make sure to remesh your motor and your gear. Make sure you get the mesh right. Adjust your belt tension. Make sure it's not too loose. Check what I just said for the swash. I believe there's another Blade Fusion 360 owner out there on YouTube who had the same issue. This is actually my second Fusion 360. The other one's brand new in the box, and I just like having spares. I hate waiting. So, yeah, I mean, try not to bang up these blades or servos anywhere, because they do strip pretty easy. Anyways, these servos are just to get you by. For a kit like this, I mean, any 360 size heli, you're gonna pay around $500, $400, and this one comes with a fly barley's unit and everything you need. You just plug and play, and it comes with all the telemetry, so you're getting your money's worth. If the servos are an issue, just replace them for maybe some Torque servos. Micro Torque makes some nice servos, Metal Gear servos, and they're micro sized. But yeah, this is a 360, and this is probably the one I recommend most if you guys are going to start off. It's more natural to fly. It's more nimble. You want you want a more predictable helicopter if you want to progress a little faster. And like I said, micros are awesome, but you are limited to what you can do. And here are a couple micro helicopters they offer from Blade. And You know, my favorite one is the Fusion 180. I got the 150, also a good one, cheap to repair, and the Infusion 180, also an awesome one. But anyways, that's the video, and I just kind of wanted to touch base on the throttle curve ESC reprogramming and calibration. So thank you guys, and I hope you guys have a you know a good flying career ahead. So see you guys around. Bye.